All right, so why don't we get started? If you would, just wait till the microphone. So Matteo here has a mic, and that way it'll get saved for the video recording. So questions? That's right. Actually, for students, people always remember who asked the question.
Hello. Sorry, this question is for Ryan. I'm a computer science student. I'm a junior, and I've always had dreams of starting my own startup. So I'm just wondering, what were the steps that you took to start your company at graduation, and what were some things that you wish you did when you were first doing it?
Yeah. I think the first thing that I did was I admitted that I really had no idea what I was doing at all. And I found someone who had a much better idea of what to do than me. And so I think having an advisor, someone who had done this before a few times and actually could give me a lot of advice to kind of ease some of the worries that I had, or just kind of questions that I wasn't sure what the answers of them were, like, for the contract work side, I didn't even think about that as a way to fund the company. And that came from him saying, hey, this is actually something that you could do, and I'll help you find a contract, I'll help you put it together. I think the other thing that we did that I've seen other kind of studios not do, and it's caused some friction. It depends on the kind of like venture that you want to go into, but when we got started, we immediately, we registered as an S corporation, and I sent out contracts to people on the team, like, hey, sign this, you work for Petrichor, everything that you're doing belongs to Petrichor. That way, everything was legitimate, because there are some teams that get started and they're like, yeah, we're all friends and we're doing this for fun, and then some money actually starts coming in, and the person who really didn't do that much but was there looming in the background wants more than they're actually, you're willing to give them, and problems happen. So I think that was also, I don't think that would have even happened with the team that I had, but it was just a nice, precaution. And then as for things that I wish I had done that I didn't,
You did it perfectly. I don't know what was
I think it's a hard thing to think of right now. I don't know if I have any big regrets. I think there are mistakes that I made, but if I look back on them, I'm kind of glad that I made them, because I was able to look at that and go, oh man, I screwed that up, but then learn from it. So I can't think of anything. Ask me in 6 months.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Other questions?
Ladies first.
For these type of games, this is for any of you to answer. What kind of budget does somebody need? I understand yours, because your software was probably medium or high, and for MIT, and even Jeremy, yours, what kind of budget does somebody need to even come out with something that's functional and fun?
Well, when we first went out and priced it out, I went to some agencies in Boston that I know had done these kinds of things before, and the price tag was about $65,000, and that was for bare bones. It didn't include any strategy around it. That's when I called Monty at Mass Digi to get some ideas for things, and it was a fraction of that working with Ryan. We also worked with another project manager who had some experience, so it was a combined cost. But I knew Ryan was looking for that experience, and it definitely worked out. He's going to charge me more now the next time we do it. But One thing, too, on the entrepreneurship side is he's a game designer. I'm sure none of them thought, really that you wanted to work on corporate things when you set out to be the next World of Warcraft, right? So when you're starting your new company, don't pigeonhole yourself. See the other opportunity that will build upon your base.
So Ryan, do you want to what would you think the budget for Mind the Arrow would be if full rate cost that?
So I think like a development budget for Mind the Arrow, we didn't have people full working on it, but for 2 months, a team of 6 working full on that, it probably would have been, I want to say, between like 40 to 50,000 to build the game, is a fair estimate.
So we're in a little bit of a different position because Lincoln Lab is an FFRDC, so we work with government sponsorship, and therefore we waste a lot of, we get paid a lot, no. Well, so like one of the games we worked on was 100K, which is small for one of our programs given a lot of the overhead, but it means that we have one developer for part of a year, and then some design team and some domain expertise. I think the key thing that we've learned in making these games work, because there are a lot of big programs at the lab. The game programs are generally not the big ones, especially these lightweight games where the appeal is that they're small and quick. The key that we've learned is to avoid the things that we know are hard. So if my engineering instinct is to tackle the hard problem first so we understand how hard it is and get it done. And that ends up with you solving the hard problem and none of the other things that make the game work. So like one game we were working on military squads and evaluating technology, and so we wanted to make it a multiplayer game to look at collaborative elements, but building a multiplayer framework was really hard. We couldn't use some of the off-the-shelf ones for legal reasons about where we can put data. And the best decision we made was just make it a one-player game, so we didn't have to deal with that. And to use the assets we found in the Unity store rather than trying to build our own assets, even though we technically could hire artists in-house. And that let us get something that, actually when we showed to the sponsor, their first reaction was, I thought you were going to make a game, it looks like you've just downloaded a game from the internet. I was like, no, we built this. It's really nice because we bought something from Unity for $50. And so thinking about, and I guess similar to that is sort of thinking about what you know how to do well and leveraging that, and thinking a little bit outside the box about how you leverage it. So we're building something for first responders in a stressful, in a disaster environment, but we use a lot of art assets from the Unity store that are meant for military applications and smoking buildings and things. But it's not much of a stretch to adapt that technology over, but we get a huge amount of leverage from that without having to build that stuff ourselves. As soon as we start building anything, I know we're sunk because usually these projects are very small.
Okay, and then Jeremy. And if you're working on a project, hiring an artist is well worth it. They can do some amazing stuff. So, you can buy assets, but feed an artist. Yeah.
We build a prototype to prove that the government should spend money on building it. So yeah, art and sound are very cool.
Yeah, so for us, being an enterprise-grade solution, obviously there was a lot more than just buying the product or in that case, implementing and then paying licensing for that product, because that's generally, from an enterprise perspective, the model that you're going to be pulled into these days at least. If you can buy outright and not have to pay a license, then go for that, but that doesn't happen often. So for us, it was, again, part of a bigger culture change program, so to put a dollar value to it is tough, but you're in the hundreds of thousands range, especially if we wanted to then focus on building it ourselves. I mean, it touches to kind of what Rob was just saying, in that you focus on what you're good at. I mean, if you're not good at building these kind of things, or if that's not part of your forte, then outsource part of that and work on what you're good at, because you're wasting time and money trying to make it right. That being said, the game that you're going to be played tonight was made with no money, just code, sweat, and beers. So we'll have some fun, hopefully, with that and play through there. But
And, if you look at it, doing sort of a finished app, you're looking at probably a minimum of $50,000 if you pay full rate. And then it goes up to infinity from there, right? The tough thing is, because everybody's got a smartphone, people see games and things like that, they're expecting a certain level of finish in a commercial product, and that's always expensive. And so that's where you really got to manage your scope and your planning. I had a question for Jennifer. So I've always loved how well you measure everything that happens at events. Based on this, what would you do next time, or what do you think is going to give you a bigger bang?
That's a good question, because we actually had that conversation earlier today based on some results we experienced at a different event that we did the week after the event that I brought the metrics with. It was still successful, but it was a different audience. So that audience wasn't as interested in the flash of the Google Cardboard and the app. They wanted to know more about the product. So what we would do differently, and actually what we're doing differently next week and the week after for other events we reevaluated the audience that we're speaking to. So next week it's an older, more old-fashioned enterprise audience, IT guys and girls that we're going to be addressing. So we're pulling back. We're not going to have the video showing. We'll have the Google Cardboard, but only for people we have conversations with. Now then we're going to Oracle Open World, where it's just chaos, and there's 30,000 people in San Francisco. I'm going to have the video going and showing off the app to stand out from everyone else. So it's really about knowing the audience and maximizing. And like Monty said, I do measure the quality. I'll follow a lead from an event all the way through to opportunity and know the cost of the lead per the event and everything. And we look at that. So it's important to know the audience for the story as well as how you're going to distribute it.
Other questions? Yeah? All right. The question behind the poll.
So this is a question for Jennifer. After working with Petrichor, a student startup fresh out of college, do you think you have any more comments about your relationship with them versus like a big, medium-sized tech startup, or if you would like work with them again?
What was the last part of your, would I work with you again?
Yeah, essentially, what are some of the advantages of working with like a small startup versus like a medium-sized company?
There's a lot of flexibility, and the collaboration I felt, though I'm sure you guys were all cursing me on Friday nights, was more engaging. It wasn't, you were willing to hear me out and deliver on the vision as opposed to putting me in a box just to move me down the project scope and get to the invoice. So working with smaller firms like Petrichor allows for that flexibility, that collaboration, that teamwork. I wanted to make it a win-win. I hope it was. Okay.
I think for us, like, again, like the collaboration, like, you know, since we're so young and we wanted something that would go out there and something that would genuinely impress people, like we wanted it to do really well as well. Like if it was something that flopped and no one downloaded it, it would have been, you know, it would have just been a, you know, another thing to put on our portfolio, and it wouldn't have actually had any successes tied to it. And that was the big thing that we really wanted out of it, was for it to do really well. So I think that was why, you know, we went and we put extra polish into it. We really wanted it to be a nice. We hid those Irish dancers so well. You are not going to find them. I guarantee that.
But I think it's across any vendor you work with, especially for the students here. Make it a win-win. Because if you make it a win for your vendor and who you're collaborating with, they will make you look like a champion, and you can't put any price on that. That'll advance your career, advance the company farther than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, one of the things is sometimes you might want to avoid the word gamification. Old people don't like games. And it's not that they don't like games, but they don't want to be seen as being frivolous. And so, you know, behavior engagement, engagement systems, reward systems. All of those things are essentially the same mechanics that come behind it. So, worth looking at that way.